Good Friday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Browns an extra day of work as they get ready for that Monday night game when they will host the Bengals Halloween night, First Energy Stadium. Some news from out in Berea today, and it's not great. Denzel Ward not practicing, still in concussion protocol. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah not practicing. Greedy Williams not practicing. David Njoku not practicing. Do you sense a theme here? Wyatt Teller also unable to go. The unstated here, Jadeveon Clowney was back practicing. Myles Garrett riding a bike. Jack Conklin getting rest. Some news of an extension, although not a real big newsy one, is long snapper Charlie Hewitt has signed a 4-year contract extension. That comes from his agent. Certainly want a good long snapper. So Charlie Hewitt will be around with the Browns for several more years. With that, let's welcome in Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. And Jeff, I had said last week, you know, Denzel Ward, not really a big deal when you're facing the Ravens with what they have. It's a big deal, one, that he's still in concussion protocol, that he's had multiple concussions. And the Bengals are a team you want as many defensive backs as you could potentially have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is. I'm more concerned about the history of concussions because they are something that we know now through research and experience that, you know, they compound upon one another. Your third concussion is generally worse than your second one. And we've seen players, you know, Andrew Luck is a great example, have issues with it and decide to shorten their careers because of it. And that's something that's becoming a little bit more prevalent around the league. And that's something that you just don't want to have happen to a great guy like Denzel, whether his, you know, and whether his play has been great or not. You hate to see a guy like, you know, missing time for concussions and missing this significant amount of time. The fact that he hasn't even started to try to come out of the protocol yet, that means he's not playing Monday night either, because you have to have one limited practice where you run around and they check you after that, and then you have to go through a full day the next day again without symptoms. Browns just don't have time for that, like even if it's a Monday night game. So he's not going to be out there Monday night, and that's going to be a loss. I know the Bengals are dealing with their own losses, but you got to have all hands on deck when you're playing against Joe Burrow, especially after what he did last week. Yeah, and so what you're referring to, Ja'Marr Chase ruled out. He and Burrow have really been killing it the last couple of weeks together. The NFL Live crew on ESPN talked about what Chase's absence could mean to the Bengals offense.
There is almost an unspoken language as well between him and Joe Burrow. When things get tough and tight or you need a play, that is how we deem great players or guys that's ascending to be great players. Ja'Marr Chase's name is called when it's a play that needs to be made for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll be interested to see who that becomes. They have very capable guys around, but I'll be interested to see what guy Joe Burrow starts to build a strong level of trust with when they have to have it in certain situations going forward.
It's that combination of the deep threat ability, but also the yards after the catch you saw early there, fourth in the NFL, that makes Ja'Marr such a threat and so difficult to defend, and to Marcus's point, dictates how defenses play this team. You know, and we talked a little bit about how the Bengals offense has been improving over the last few weeks, and one of the reasons why they've improved, I alluded to this, is that the run game finally got back on track. They got back on track by basically putting Mixon in the gun like the rest of the offense, spreading things out, and he was running into all of these light boxes. That's not going to be the case with Ja'Marr Chase, Al. Like, they're going to face very, very different defensive looks. And I think as much as it's incumbent upon, you know, T. Higgins to step up and be that number one, I would say this is also a challenge for Zach Taylor. You still have a good group of pass catchers and a very good running back and an offensive line that's been playing better.
So, Jeff Risdon, how about it? How does the loss of Ja'Marr Chase impact the Bengals offense that the Browns will see Monday night?
No, he is so talented, and I think they alluded to it very nicely there. He's so good after the catch, and that's one of the things that you lose that dynamic. Look, they have capable receivers. T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, those guys can play. The issue for them is their third wide receiver this year only has 2 catches. They just don't play them. And you can't plug and play a guy like Stanley Morgan or, you know, some of the other guys that they're considering calling up from their practice squad. they don't give you anything close to what Jamar Chase does. This is an offense that plays almost exclusively with 3 wide receivers on the field. 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. That's their offense. They're not going to be able to do that so well or threaten as much. And that certainly helps the Browns, especially with Denzel being the way he is, and some other injuries going on. Now the focus becomes, we got to stop Joe Mixon. We got to keep him from beating us. I like the idea of, I think Greg Newsome can play pretty well outside. I think Martin Emerson has shown that he can do some things. I think the safeties, well, they're the safeties. That's not so good, but they're the chances of a guy like Hayden Hurst, their tight end, beating the Browns the way that Jamar Chase does, that I'll take those chances. That certainly helps the Browns' chances to at least slow down the offense. Now, keep in mind though, Joe Burrow has been really dialed in the last couple of weeks. And as Mina said there, with Mixon emerging as the run game, their offensive line is looking like it's a little bit more confident. That they're still a dangerous animal there.
Well, and to your point, we'll put some numbers behind how good Joe Burrow has been. This is an ESPN stat to know. Burrow's had back-to-back games, 75% completion percentage, 3 passing touchdowns. The only other players in NFL history to record 3 consecutive such games: Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, all of whom were MVPs in those seasons. That's pretty good. I'm going to go on. Doesn't matter how you're grading it, what curve you're grading it on, he's been really good.
That's pretty impressive. Why can't we get a guy like that in Cleveland? That's long running lament there. Yeah, he's been phenomenal. And I've had the pleasure of watching the Bengals. Like, look, I know they're the Bengals. They're kind of a fun team to watch, though, and Joe Burrow is one of the reasons why. Like, when you're not watching the Browns, like you can pay attention around the league a little bit, and like, wow, man, they're kind of fun. Like, they seem to have an enjoyment of playing football that just isn't there in Cleveland right now, and it's hopefully that reverses this week. Hopefully it's a very unpleasant Monday night for them. But man, Burrow has been dialed in, and look. I don't vote for the MVP, but if I had a vote, he's certainly in strong consideration.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, one guy who has been playing pretty well when he's been given the ball is running back Nick Chubb. So running backs to score at least 8 rushing touchdowns in each of their first 5 seasons: Nick Chubb, Jim Brown, Emmitt Smith, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Adrian Peterson. That's a similar list to what we just ran through with
that's a lot of greatness right there, man.
Yes.
Wow.
So that'll tell you how good Nick Chubb has been. And Nick Chubb definitely has Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach's attention.
He's a great football player. He's a great football player. Really difficult to stop. He's powerful. He has great acceleration. It's like he's got video game superpowers where all of a sudden you contact him, he gets faster. It's almost like that's a boost of energy for him, where he accelerates on contact and is able to finish runs like that. He's got great balance. Obviously, he has really good vision. So I think those are all traits that belong to him. And then on top of that, he's got a great offensive line. And those guys do a really good job with the different schemes, giving him opportunities, and then he maximizes those opportunities. So it's a tough unit.
And, Jeff, it shows you how young the head coaches are now when they can drop video game references and be very accurate.
They are, and he's right. There is something about Chubb. When he gets hit, he does seem to have that, hey, I got to get out of here. That's a fun thing, having that chase gear. That's something that when we're scouting in the NFL draft process, one of the things we look at in cornerbacks is like, can they chase down a wide receiver that's beyond them? Do they have that extra gear? It's actually one of the things that I really liked about Denzel Ward when he came out. Let's go back to Denzel for a second. But yeah, man, Chubb, I've told you this several times. For my money, he is the best runner in the NFL. There might be a couple more complete all-around NFL backs, but if I need a handoff to get me 3 yards, there's no question I'm taking Nick Chubb. And the company that he's keeping with that, look, all those guys will be in the Hall of Fame. Well, 3 of them are. Adrian Peterson will be there very soon if he ever officially retires, which he hasn't yet, by the way. And Chubb is he's well on his way. And keep in mind, he's 7 games into year number 5. He's got a lot more time to build on that too.
Yeah, and if he got the ball more times, there would be more of a recognition league-wide. So that's fine. All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Steve Lannon. I think we all agree after looking at the data that the defense is the problem. I'd like to see him do 2 things against the Bengals. One is move Myles Garrett around different places on the defensive line. I think that'll throw Joe Burrow off. And also, not blitz all the time, but blitz more than normal. Maybe between those 2, we can really throw him off his game plan. Thanks. Love the show.
And as always, appreciate all the voicemails. I agree. I mean, you got to disguise where Myles Garrett is coming from, make him work for it. And my thing is, I want to see this defense dictate as opposed to react. And they haven't done a lot of that this year.
No, they have not. And I actually found a stat from last week on why you don't want to let Joe Burrow and the Bengals dictate it. So last week, the Atlanta Falcons blitzed him twice on 45 dropbacks. On the passes that he completed against a 4-man rush, he set an NFL record with 467 passing yards against a 4-man rush. That's the highest in NFL history when facing a 4-man rush. He also, it's the highest quarterback rating against a 4-man rush in at least the last 7 seasons. You can't let that happen again. Look, I know Jay Moore is going to be out. You cannot let Joe Burrow get comfortable, because even without his top target, he's still going to pick your bones clean. You've got to bring pressure. I love the idea of Myles. Look, remember back when Myles, actually the picture that you showed there was a game where they moved Myles all over the place, with Clowney, fingers crossed, coming back and being as full speed as he can be. That gives you some options to do that. You can put him inside. You can put him on the outside. You can put the 2 of them on the same side. There's some concepts there for Joe Woods to explore, and I hope that they do it. But they cannot sit back and try to cover, especially with Denzel being the way he is. You've got to go after Joe Burrow. Now, their offensive line is not good, but it is getting better. They're starting to play a little bit tighter. They're starting to get a little more familiar with one another. If you can mix that up and make them confused and let them regress to where they were, where they're pointing at the guy who sacked Burrow while the 2 of them both missed it, and that did happen in week 1, by the way. That's the kind of thing you got to do to stop this Bengals offense, because look, I do think that the Browns offense is going to find some success in this game. It's a matter of, can the defense make it so they can outscore that Bengals offense, and that's going to require a lot of pressure on Burrow, and then you're not going to get that from 4-man, and you're not going to get that from having Myles Garrett line up at the exact same spot every time. They've got to do a great voicemail there.
As always, I agree wholeheartedly. You gotta disguise where your best pass rusher is coming from when you don't have a bunch of them. Jeff Risdon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will take a look at some potential trade targets. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is James Seiler. 50-plus years I've been a fan of the Browns, and the time's getting near where I won't be anymore. The worst part about the team, the biggest weakness, I think, is that defensive line. You got to control the trenches. We got it down pat on the offensive side, but Barry won't address those defensive tackles. I don't understand that. I just saw that the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles picked up Robert Quinn from the Bears for a 4th rounder, and the Bears are even picking up $7 million of his salary. Why? Why, Barry? Why aren't you doing something to help that leaky, porous defensive line? Thank you very much. You have a great day.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, there's a couple of things with that. Number one, the $33 million they have in cap space, they're going to have to roll over because Watson, Ward, there's a number of guys who have big numbers coming up. The other thing is at 2-5, you already don't have a first-round pick because of the trade for Watson, and Quinn's an edge rusher.
Yeah, and that was a situation where the Eagles are clearly going all in to win right now, and I don't blame them. They have the cap room to do it. They, by the way, also have 2 first-round picks. That gives them a little bit more flexibility as well. They've made a couple of good trades, and they're seeing the fruits of that. The Browns aren't to that point yet. They will get there, hopefully sooner than later. Look, some of it is the fact that even if they had some cap room to spend, that's a position where, to borrow the money-balling term, that's where they're going to try to go cheap. They're not going to spend premium assets on the defensive line. Their analytical studies, and this does get backed up around the league, say that you just don't overspend to build up your defensive tackles. You spend on your pass rushers, you spend on your cornerbacks, you spend on your offensive tackles, and you spend on your wide receivers. That's where you go. They have not had luck in the draft, and I think that's the big thing. Guys like Jordan Elliott and Tommy Togiai, they just haven't become the players that they need them to be. And maybe at some point you use a 2nd-round pick instead of a 3rd or a 4th-round pick to try to address it. But again, that's probably asking a little bit more than what Andrew Berry and the Browns want to commit to the position in terms of resources. Should they? Absolutely. Should they be looking at free agents this coming offseason? Absolutely. And they'll need to pay somebody because what they have in their color's right. It's not working. And it's pretty clear just watching the games. I actually watched the game with some of the Browns game with my wife last week. She's not really a big football fan. She's like, how come our defensive line is being pushed backwards? Like, it's that easy to see.
Yeah,
for bystanders, like, how does look? I don't think that they have the ability to address it this season, other than like a trade for a rental or something like that. Which that's kind of dicey because then you're giving up some cap room. But man, it is a constant source of frustration, especially when you have linebackers the way that the Browns are, that are dependent on being kept clean by the guys in front of them, and that's not happening. And that's having ripple effects. That's one of the reasons why the safeties keep cheating up, because they got to worry about playing the run so much because the defensive line isn't handling it for the linebackers. It's a lot of ripple effects of not having a good set of defensive tackles. It's something that they probably should have addressed in the offseason and didn't. Taven Bryan, I guess, technically counts as addressing it, but he's not the answer either.
No, the thing that we have kept saying on this show is there's the opportunity for somebody to step up, and nobody has stepped up. And, maybe they need to look for a different, the only guy that I would consider kind of a run stuffer that they've signed was Billings. He opted out because of COVID and then didn't work out. So maybe they need to find something a little different. It's the run defense has suffered since Anthony Walker left out. You can put a big circle around that injury, and you can trace it back to there. All right, targets. 5 realistic trade targets with Tuesday's trade deadline approaching. This from Browns Wire. We're going to run through them. Milton Williams, defensive tackle from the aforementioned Philadelphia Eagles. KJ Hamler, wide receiver from the Broncos. Safety Xavier Woods from the Panthers. Muhammad, edge rusher from the Bears. Tommy Trimble, tight end from the Panthers. I'm not sure they're going to look for a wide receiver or a tight end. I think Donovan Peoples-Jones has been fine. They want to see more of David Bell. They want to see more of Woods. Milton Williams, I'd listen to that, I guess.
Yeah, so he's interesting because he's got time left on his contract. He's got 2 more seasons after this year, and that's the important part. As my colleague at Browns-Wire, Corey Kinnan, made very clear, they don't trade for expiring contracts. Deion Jones was a bit of an exception because I think they knew that they were going to sign him to a longer-term deal and make sure that was taken care of. So that you got to kind of throw that one out. As dire as things are at tight end right now, you're not going to trade assets for Tommy Tremble. Look, he's a fine player. He's actually been better than I thought he would be coming out of Notre Dame, but he's not a guy that's going to move the needle. He's not a guy who's going to help this team go from 2-5 to 4-5. That's just not who he is. Williams, though, is an interesting one. He's in his second season, second-round draft pick. Hasn't really found a home. He's not a great scheme fit for what Philadelphia likes to do. And he hasn't unseated Fletcher Cox yet. And I think Cox is 33, 34 years old. And they haven't really eased him into that role yet. So he's clearly a guy who should be able to be had. The question is, what can you give up for him? What do you have to offer? You don't have your first round pick. You're going to be in the need to collect picks. You talked about the salary cap implications and how they have to roll things over. One of the ways that you get better with that is you hit on some late round draft picks. That's your cheap depth. That's how you can afford to pay the top end. They don't really have that because they haven't hit on those late round picks, and now they don't have that many. So it's tough to say. I will say, to go back to what the last caller said, though, I mean, you've got a need for a guy. Milton Williams, coming out of Louisiana Tech, was a guy who was a problem for both the run and the pass. So if they're going to make one, that would be the one that I would go for. Nothing against Al-Qadim Muhammad, nothing against Xavier Woods, but they're not guys that are going to help, and you're not in a position to be to take a guy who's got 10 games left on his contract. That's just not where they're at. Would they take Kareem Hunt? Who knows? That's probably something that we'll get talked about a lot.
Yeah, you bring that up. Do you think he gets moved at the trade deadline? They really haven't utilized him as much as I thought they would.
I haven't either. And the big thing is that he is also an expiring contract. So you're going to have to find a team that has cap room to take his cap, because I don't think the Browns are going to eat cap on him. I think they're going to say, hey, you've got to pay him what he's due for the rest of the season. And look, it's not a lot. I think it's $4.25 million or something like that remaining in this cap. It's not that bad, but you still have to find that and somebody who's in a position to win now. Los Angeles Rams make sense. The Philadelphia Eagles make some sense, although they're doing fairly well at running back the way they are. There's just not that much demand for running backs. You look at what James Robinson went for this week to the New York Jets. James Robinson has been a more successful back than Kareem Hunt has. And they didn't use him much in Jacksonville, but going for a 6th-round pick. Like, is it really worth getting rid of Kareem for the rest of the season for a 4th-round pick that you're going to use next year, perhaps on another defensive tackle that doesn't work out? Or do you need him if Nick Chubb somehow gets hurt or has to miss a game or goes down in the middle of a game? But Kareem, I still, and this is something that's bugged me for a long time, and we've talked about this, Dave, I would love to see them run Kareem and Nick together. Put them on the field at the same time and see what you can do. And Stefanski just doesn't seem to have any interest in doing that. That's very frustrating. That's one of the reasons why I suppose Kareem Hunt would be expendable, but they don't seem to be aggressively shopping him the way that I thought they would.
Yeah, and I'd like to see that for, not 3 or 4 plays, but 10 or 20 plays per game. Jeff Risdon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention more towards this Bengals-Brown matchup coming up. Monday Night Football, First Energy Stadium. Sports4CLE will be right back. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Browns getting ready to face Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, First Energy Stadium Monday night. This is kind of interesting. This is from ESPN's What to Watch For in this matchup. So Burrow 0-3 against the Browns in 3 career starts. In those 3 losses, he's averaged 6.8 yards per attempt passing. It's a full yard lower than his career average, 7.9. You see the Bengals 3.5-point favorites in that matchup. That was really interesting, Jeff. I realized he was 0-3, didn't realize that point. The other thing that we've talked about earlier this week, Myles Garrett has had good games rushing Joe Burrow.
Oh, 100%. And that's had a big influence on why Joe Burrow's yards per attempt and air yards are so low. Look, the Bengals' offensive line has been the bane of their existence for a long time. As I noted earlier, they are getting better, but they're still not good. And that gives, again, to go back to the voicemail truth and reason that we had earlier, move Myles around. Let Joe Burrow worry about that guy instead of worrying about who he's going to throw the ball to. Look, the Browns have had a lot of success against this team. Remember, they won last year with Case Keenum starting at quarterback. The opportunity is there. Look, I know the Bengals they came off, they were in the Super Bowl last year. They're getting hot. This is still not a complete team. They are vulnerable. The Browns do match up well with them in terms of run offense, in terms of being able to pressure Joe Burrow, especially with Clowney appearing to be back, and the way that the Browns can generate some pass rush. There's opportunities to be had here. Joe Burrow he's really, really good. He's not invincible, and the Browns have proven that in the past. No Jamar Chase. Look, I think the line is right, but the opportunity is absolutely there for the Browns this week, and their history against Burrow plays into that.
All right, Joe Burrow talked about what he sees from this Browns defense.
They got really talented players on defense. Obviously, the 2 pass rushers, they're guys you can't let wreck the game. They have in the past, so you always got to be aware of those guys. Defensive backs are really good. They make all the throws hard, nothing easy. They always compete, so it'll be a tough one.
Fair to say you've never had a 3-game losing streak against any team at any level?
I don't know. Tough to say. Probably true. Can't say for sure.
Is that? I mean, I know how competitive you are. Is that something that kind of eats at you?
I mean, those are in the past. I mean, obviously you would have liked to have won those games, but every game, every week is a new week.
I'll translate. Yes, that motivates me. Yeah. I remember talking to 100%. I talked to his high school coach at Athens High School down when he was a senior. He said he is by far the most competitive kid I've ever seen. Does not like to lose at anything. So you can be sure the fact that his in-state neighbors who beat him 3 times is eating at him.
Oh, 100%. You can see it in his body language there. He is ready to go out and get that monkey off of his back. It's clear that it bothers him. He's trying to, and this is why you watch the videos because if you take just the context and the words, the print word from that, you'll be like, okay, all right, I kind of buy that. If you look at him and the way he's saying it, there ain't no way that that's what he meant. He's clearly bothered by this, and it's going to be something that's definitely on his mind.
All right, some keys to this before we let you go. Browns obviously need a win. 3-5 at the bye would feel a whole lot better than 2-6. I mean, I can't even believe I'm saying 2-6, but I'm saying it. What are some keys to getting the win that the Browns need Monday night?
It's one of the big things is Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, the quarterback, everything revolves around that. He cannot make mistakes. This is a defense that makes you pay for mistakes. He can't be late. He can't be fooled into throws that aren't necessarily there. That's been a problem for him. It's been an unexpected problem for Jacoby. One of the big things was he was a guy who was going to take care of the ball. He hasn't done that. I would love to see them come out and dictate the pace of the game with some power runs and stick with it. If it's 1st and 10 to 2nd and 7 to 3rd and 2, just keep running. Like don't try those little flutter outs to DPJ or trying to do something down the field. Keep the first down, string those together. Let your defense rest. Let Joe Burrow get a little antsy over on the side. Like, man, I haven't been in the game for like 8 minutes here. I'm going to come out and try to do something special here without my best player. I think that's a great way to mitigate what the Bengals do well, which is score over you. The Browns' defensive secondary has to play tighter. They cannot have the communication breakdowns. They have to tackle well. That's something that I don't think we've seen in a couple of weeks either. They've got to be able to just stand up. And the other thing, I hate to bag on Cade York. He's got to be perfect. Good enough isn't good enough. You got to be perfect against this team because every point's going to be precious in this game. I still do think that the Browns have a very solid chance of pulling this off, but they're gonna have to do things better than they have for 60 minutes. We've seen them play really well for 15, 20 minutes at a time. They got to put 60 together.
Yeah, and if they can win the turnover battle and get an extra possession or two for that offense, that'll go a long way. Jeff Risdon, BrownsWire.com, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Thanks, and go Cavs.
All right, Jeff Risdon. Make sure you check him out, BrownsWire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Marisa Contipelli, the team reporter for the Cincinnati Bengals, will give us some Bengal perspective on this Browns-Bengals matchup. Coming up Monday night, Sports4CLE. We'll be right back.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE, getting ready to face the Cincinnati Bengals Monday night at First Energy Stadium. Let's welcome in longtime friend of the program, Bengals team reporter Marisa Contipelli. Marisa, appreciate the time. Joe Burrow has really played well, especially as of late. What's kind of fallen into place for him?
Yeah, well, Dave, first off, always a pleasure when I get a chance to talk with you guys, especially around this time of the season when it's Browns versus Bengals. It's a matchup that's always close to my heart and my family ties. But that's a great question. I mean, what's been going on with Joe Burrow the last 2 weeks? He finally looks comfortable. And you have to go back to him dealing with that appendectomy during training camp. Missed a lot of training camp practices and didn't get to play in any of the preseason. You come out week 1 against Pittsburgh, and it's an uncharacteristic Joe Burrow that you see. And, I have to go back and wonder if him missing all of that time, that's the reason he came out week 1 the way that he did, just not looking completely himself just yet. But over the last 2 weeks, especially since really week 3, you look at his numbers, but over the last 2 weeks, what he has been able to do in the pocket, having enough time, being comfortable. I mean, back-to-back, 400, 300, 400-yard passing games here, 3 passing touchdowns. He's had a rushing touchdown in each of the last 2 weeks. It's finally Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow. And another thing, I think that's really kind of helped the Bengals offense fall into place here as of late is they've taken the ball. They've wanted to get out to a fast start. Before week 3 against the Jets, the Bengals would they win the coin toss, they're typically going to defer, like the majority of NFL teams out there. But for some reason, that Jets game, Zach Taylor was like, all right, we're going to take the ball. We're going to get off to a fast start. And just in talking with a couple of the players, Captain Center Ted Karras is one of them. He feels that that was kind of a momentum kind of shift for them, that making sure they can get out to a fast start and playing from in front and kind of giving them that little extra kind of boost of confidence on offense.
Yeah, gosh, you're making it sound like Joe Burrow might be human. He didn't. He actually needed some time to get used to stuff. This is kind of interesting as well. So this is from Pro Football Focus. When Joe Burrow gets rid of the ball 0 to 2 seconds, look at that. Now, the stuff when it's longer than 2 seconds is still really good. But what that tells you is when he tries to like extend plays and make something happen, like any quarterback, when you're able to go to your first read and get rid of it quickly, that offense is just it's nearly unstoppable with the weapons Joe Burrow has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dave, that is a really interesting stat and one that I hadn't really seen before. You guys just pulled it up here. You're really right though. Joe Burrow, when he has too much time, he's great sometimes. When he has to, make something happen that's out of nothing. We've seen him do that where he's scrambled and then has gotten a 20-yard gain when he uses his legs. But when he's able to go to his first option, good things have been happening for the Bengals over the last few weeks. And the thing about this Bengals offense is they have a lot of number one options for Burrow. It's not just, the Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow connection. It's really T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd who will be stepping up here now. And also Joe Mixon, which, something, to look at too, just how Joe Mixon is being used in the passing game. It's a little bit heavier than we had been accustomed to over the last few seasons. And I mean, that's where your bread and butter is, right? You have a quarterback like Joe Burrow, you're going to let him throw the ball. Absolutely.
And, he's shown what can happen. You mentioned Jamar Chase. Reports are not going to play. I know that nothing has come out official. How do things get altered? You kind of touched on it there. This offense still has a lot of weapons. How do things get shifted in the absence of Jamar Chase?
Well, the good thing for the Bengals is that they have so many weapons. I mean, you look at a guy like T. Higgins. Higgins would be the number one receiver on, I would say, maybe 70 to 80% of the other NFL teams out there in the league. And so the fact that you have him in the arsenal, I mean, you look at what him and Joe did their rookie seasons back in 2020. T went for over 900 yards, had 6 touchdowns, and is averaging about the same yards per reception this season that he was in 2020. So there really hasn't been much of any drop-off from using T. Higgins. And when you look at back in 2020, and I know it was only a short period of time that him and Burrow were together before Burrow ended up going out with that ACL injury, but just the connection that they had established and that they've built on over the last 2 years. T. Higgins is just such a big body. He's going to make those contested catches. So he is still that number one receiving target, receiving threat, and he's going to have a chance to prove it. And then you also look at a guy like Tyler Boyd, who has been so consistent in the slot over his career. And then all of a sudden, over the last, half season to full season, he's just kind of taken off and kind of been almost a downfield explosive threat that you hadn't really seen early on in his career. Since week 15 of last season, Boyd has had 4 touchdowns that have gone for 50 or more yards. The only other player since the start of 2021 who has had more than him is Jamar Chase. So, Tyler Boyd, you typically don't think of someone as a downfield target, downfield threat. He has been for Joe Burrow in this offense, and I would expect for to see even more of that. If Jamar Chase is to miss any amount of time, to see them go to the Tyler Boyd a little bit more. And then, it also makes me wonder just what the Bengals' run game is going to look like. They haven't really gotten off to the kind of start that I think a lot of people expected them to. They've been running the ball effectively. Joe Mixon, over the last couple of weeks has been averaging close to 5 yards per carry, an improvement from the first few weeks of the season, but he still has yet to have a 100-yard rushing game. And the Bengals as a whole rushing are 28th in the league right now compared to where they rank among the passing game. So will they try to get Joe Mixon going on the ground? Will they use him even more in the passing game that we've already seen? Questions I would love for Zach Taylor to tell us right now, but we're probably going to have to wait to see what happens in those situations Monday night, Dave.
Fair enough. And the Browns' run defense was better against the Ravens. Before that, needed a whole lot of work. So Mixon is, I'm sure, kind of anxious to see what the Browns defense has. Zach Taylor talked about this matchup, Bengals and Browns.
They run the ball well, not just against us, but versus everybody. And then they have all the things that come off of that. And so when you're in some of these heavier personnel groupings per se, they've always done a good job with their tight ends. It puts you in binds because you're taking, you're putting bigger people on the field oftentimes, and because they run the ball so well. And then they're pushing the ball vertically down the field after play actions, they're nakeds, and so they create space that way. They create, discipline issues in terms of your run fits and your coverage responsibilities. And that's where they get a lot of explosives from, and they do a good job with their play action screens. Their screen game is they do a great job with that as well. So it's just it's a really good football team. You're asking specifically about the offense. It's a really good offense, and they can be very tough to defend.
Marisa, everybody talks about the Bengals offense because of Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon. How's the defense been playing, and how big of a challenge do you think the run game is that the Browns possess? Browns' run game is good. How's the defense playing? How big of a challenge?
Well, overall, I think the Bengals defense has been overshadowed because of how well the offense has been playing, especially over the last few weeks. I mean, you look at what this Bengals defense has done, especially in the second half. The only team in the NFL who has not given up a second half touchdown, and they've been so good in the red zone. Third best, they're forcing a field goal 50% of the time. So even though they will find themselves, in those situations throughout the game, they've been able to tighten it up when it's mattered. And you look at over, the last few weeks, I know they had lost to Baltimore, but holding the Ravens to 19 points in that one, holding Atlanta to 17. I mean, this defense has been so solid and really consistent throughout the course of the season so far. It'll be interesting to see if they get some guys back. Logan Wilson has, missed last week with a shoulder injury, but he was a full participant in practice this week. So it would be huge to get him back in the middle of the field at that linebacker spot. And then it's really on that defensive line. DJ Reader is currently on IR, and he's really their run stuffer. So missing him for a game against such an explosive Browns run attack is going to be absolutely massive. You also have defensive tackle Josh Tupou, who's been dealing with a calf injury. He did not practice this week, so it'll be interesting to see what his game status will be when we find out that designation before Monday night. Because in his absence then, Josh Tupou has been filling in and played pretty well against the Saints and the Falcons on stopping the run. But, missing those two big guys up on that defensive line, it's going to be a big challenge, Dave. This was the one matchup that I've kind of had circled when you look at Browns versus Bengals this year, is because of the injuries that have kind of, been affecting this defensive line and how good Nick Chubb is. I mean, if you're Cleveland, why are you taking the ball off the ground, honestly? Because, Nick Chubb is he's one of the best running backs in the league for a reason, and just the numbers he's been putting up. So it's going to be a big challenge for this Bengals D, but you have to think if they're able to stop Nick Chubb in some capacity, that forcing Jacoby Brissett to throw the ball, it's kind of going to be what they're going to be trying to do here, especially with how well the Bengals secondary has been playing too. Chidobe Awuzie, their top corner, hasn't allowed a touchdown yet on the season when targeted. And I believe quarterbacks are only completing about 35% of passes when they are targeting Awuzie. So he has been so locked down and so solid for them in that Bengals secondary, Dave.
So Marisa, is that kind of the key? If the run defense of the Bengals, and can the Bengals get Joe Mixon going a little bit just to take a little bit of pressure? Not that there's a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow anyway, but to kind of lighten the absence of Jamar Chase, if you will.
That's how I see it. Those are my two big keys. It's the run game on both sides. Which team is going to be able to get it going and sustain it for 4 quarters. And for the Bengals, if they can't, it's just forcing potential double teams more on Higgins and Boyd, which is something I would fully expect to see at some point from the Browns on Monday night, especially if for some reason the Bengals are unable to really establish a run game early there.
Marisa Contipelli, a Bengals team reporter, as always. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it, Marisa. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Marisa Contipelli, longtime friend of the program, Bengals team reporter. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out, other side of the break. Lance Reisland with some film breakdown. We're going to talk about Greg Newsome. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports for CLE continues. We continue talking Browns. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Time for another breakdown segment. Lance, we're going to talk a little bit about Greg Newsome, a guy who's been pretty good, just his second year, but seems to be really versatile.
Yeah, I think I love his ability to play inside and out. I think he's going to be very important this week with the Bengals, their trio of receivers. I think they're going to have to be a nickel a bunch. He can do a bunch of different things, especially if Ward can't play. He can play inside. He can play outside. He can play in space. He can tackle. He can play the bigger tight ends. He's 6 foot, 190-ish. I think he's versatile. I think he's going to be very, very important this Sunday for the Browns. Or this Monday for the Browns.
All right, let's take a look. Some of the things that we're talking about in terms of versatility and that he can do. This first video that we're going to look at, covering in the slot. How important is that? What do you see here from a coaching perspective?
Actually, this is the one outside. He's playing one. He's playing one receiver. This is part of his versatility, be able to play inside and out. So he's outside here. Does a very nice job on an out route. Does a great job of changing direction, putting his foot in the ground, driving on the football, and making a great tackle. And once again, this is his ability to read the drop of the quarterback, read through the backfield, and make a great break on the ball.
So ability to close is kind of what you're getting at in terms of what you see there, just kind of getting on the receiver in a hurry.
Yeah, and he's very intelligent. He went to Northwestern, so he's very fundamentally sound. So he's reading through. He's in his zone. He's reading through that quarterback. That quarterback takes a short drop. With that short drop, he understands it's going to be a short route. The route is going to match the drop of the quarterback, and he does a great job of driving. Once he makes that decision, he drives on the ball and makes a good tackle for a short gain.
So the other thing you mentioned, inside and out. So one of the things that's going to be key, and we're going to see that in this next video clip, the ability to change direction.
Yeah, this is last year. This is against Jamar Chase last year. They had a really good battle. All these guys had a really good battle, and his ability to change direction, his hip mobility, he kind of gets turned here. Jamar Chase does a great job of getting on his blind spot. But then he changes direction and closes the gap. What I like here is that he's got his left hand guiding him, but not interfering with Chase, and then he uses that right hand, that near arm, to go over the top and make a great play. It's kind of just how you teach it. Really, really, really well done there.
Yeah, the other thing that jumps out in this one is his ball skills. I mean, that's timed perfectly.
Yeah, he can run. Fundamentally, he's very, very sound. He does a great job of looking when the receiver looks. He does a great job of getting his hands up when the receiver gets their hands up. Very good ball skills. Again, great space. What I like here is that his hips, he almost gets turned, and his ability to reroute those hips and drive on the football again. Really well done.
So the next thing we're going to look at, this one's going to be covering in the slot. And again, we mentioned inside and out. So this is another one that critical to the versatility piece.
Yeah, so he's in the slot. He's the second. He's on the bottom here on the numbers there on the 20. Emerson is outside here. He does a great job of driving. Guys trying to block him on a quick screen here. I think this is going to be very important this week. The Bengals don't run the ball very well, and their pass game is a lot of their run game as well. So get the ball quick to these guys, quick 3-step game or 1-step game. He's got to be able to tackle, especially in that slot. He's got to help on Nixon in the run game. I think he's going to be vital this week. And here's an example of him making a tackle, not on his guy, but coming from the slot to make a tackle.
And a good job working together with the other one in this instance. The other defensive back there is MJ Emerson, the rookie. All right, we touched on this a little bit. His ability to break up passes and his ability to break on the ball is pretty good one here as well.
What I like about this one is he gets when he gets there, he gets his left hand in. So he's going to drive on the ball. Jamar Chase is just going to run just a simple go route, which is hitches and slants and fades is what Jamar Chase does very well. Doesn't run a very complex tree. He's just really, really talented. And what I like about Newsome here is that he goes late. So when Chase goes for the ball, he goes for the ball. When Chase looks for the ball, he looks for the ball. And then he gets his left arm up in here, and that's what breaks the pass up. So, again, fundamentally sound, great technique. Does not panic when Chase runs by, uses great recovery speed, and makes a very, very good play here.
The other thing that we've seen is a couple of these breaks on the ball have been against Chase, an elite number one receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, he did. You know, I like him. I want him to make some more splash plays for the Browns this year. I think he's been very, very good, but I think he's super talented. And I think the Browns secondary has been pretty solid, even though they've had their struggles in terms, when they're man coverage, they've had some good plays. They need some more splash plays. They need some more turnovers. And I think Newsome's one of those guys that can make a couple splash plays. And if Ward doesn't play this week again, he's going to have a big challenge in front of him. So he's going to have the big day.
Yeah, so as we speak, still not sure if he's going to be able to go. When you look at this passing offense that you have seen for the Bengals, and you kind of alluded to it, it really is what makes that offense go.
Yeah, and he's not their offense, when you watch it, when you really break it down, especially with Jamar Chase, they're not real fancy. They run, especially early last year, but now they're getting back to it this year. They run a lot of hitches. They run a lot of slants. They run a lot of fades, back shoulder fades, simple route combinations that they just win. And then they have obviously Higgins and Boyd. And Boyd had a huge week last week against the Falcons. So they have three guys who can make a ton of plays. I'm not sure where he'll line up, but that guy in the slot, that nickel back, whoever that may be this week, is going to have a huge week in coverage because they're not overly complex, the Bengals. They're not. They're just really, really good at what they do, and they're super talented.
The other thing is now, in fairness, the Browns, it's only been 3 games, but they're 3-0 against Joe Burrow. And that's, while that's something to be excited about, it's also something to be concerned about because Joe Burrow is the kind of quarterback that usually figures some things out.
I think football for me has always been a game of matchups, and the Browns match up very well with the Bengals. The Bengals like to get 5 receivers out. Pass protection is an issue for the Bengals. The Browns rush the passer very well. They don't have a power run game in terms of those defensive tackles getting doubled. The Browns second-level guys, those linebackers can cover very well. Browns secondary is very deep. But I think it comes down to matchups. And the Browns' defensive line, in terms of pass rush, matches up very well with the Bengals. And the Bengals don't like to help. Bengals want to get 4 and 5 guys out all the time, and that becomes a matchup problem with those defensive ends for the Browns for sure.
Lance Risdon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
All right, Lance Reisland. Make sure you check him out. Has the film breakdowns on cleveland.com as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout, other side of the break. This week's Ohio Lottery Partners in Education Shining Star. We'll be right back on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE continues. Want to remind you a special edition in honor of Monday Night Football. Browns hosting the Bengals. We will be on from noon to 1, getting you ready for that Monday night game against Bengals. Must-win game for the Browns, sitting at 2-5, heading into that bye week. Let's take a look at this. These Seth Walder, and it is wide receiver, tight end catch scores. So guys that are getting it done, catching the football for the season 2022. Number 1 in the NFL, Tyler Lockett from the Seahawks. Donovan Peoples-Jones, the guy that has really had a pretty good year as the number 2 receiver for the Browns with a 77 score ahead of Travis Kelce's 76, George Pickens's 75, and Stephon Diggs' 72. So Donovan Peoples-Jones, when given the opportunity, doing a nice job. Browns' number 1 receiver, veteran Amari Cooper, talked about what he has seen from Donovan Peoples-Jones lining up opposite him.
That's one of the most difficult parts of playing receiver because it's like, if you play running back, you know you're going to get the ball. Like, you just start running back, you know you're going to get the ball. You know you're going to get some touches, you know. But receiver, you really don't know, like, when it's coming. Even if you're the first read on a play, it might get taken away, you know what I mean? And so you just waiting and waiting and waiting, kept kind of getting cold and stuff like that. You kind of forget what it's like for the ball to touch your hands because it's different than getting a handoff. You got to actually catch the ball, you know what I mean? So it's just been tremendous, you know. He steps up every time. We need him to step up every time his number is called. In the biggest moments, too, on the biggest downs, third downs, fourth downs, whatever it is, 2 minute. So, I mean, kudos to him for that.
Amari Cooper talking about Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is definitely kind of assuming that role as the number 2 wide receiver, doing a nice job with contested catches as well. Again, we will have more on that Browns-Bengals matchup at noon to 1. We'll do, in essence, a pregame show for Monday Night Football. All right, each week in conjunction with the Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program, we recognize a role model student from somewhere across the state of Ohio. This week, we head to Olmsted Falls to meet Rocco Conti. Conti, one of the best-kept secrets in high school football throughout the state of Ohio, getting it done in the classroom as well. Rocco Conti, our Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program's shining star. Go to an Olmsted Falls football game, and you might think there are 3 or 4 guys that wear number 44. 44 is just all over the place. On offense as a running back, on defense as a linebacker, 44 is even on special teams as a kick returner. The truth is, 44 is just one player, Rocco Conti. But Conti is no ordinary player. He might be Ohio's best-kept secret.
He's born with some talents, and then, you know, the way he works in the offseason is he's parallel to none. He's the best in the weight room. We have a couple kids like him that go along with him, and He never misses a day of lifting in the season. He never misses a day of lifting out of season, does more. He prepares his body the right way, nutritionally, lifting hard, doing all the right things. And, you know, that's what allows him to take the beating that he does, the punishment, and then get back up and do it again and again and again. And he's pretty special in every, you know, category with football, weight room, you know, offense, defense, leadership, all that stuff.
Coach DeLuca knows you only get a player like Rocco Conti on your team once or twice in a coaching career. Conti as a running back is a big reason why the Bulldogs' triple option attack is so tough and feared.
I'm just thinking about the play. I'm not really thinking too much, I guess, when I get the football. Just kind of thinking about where I'm supposed to go, what I'm supposed to do, and what hole I'm supposed to hit. So,
How big of it, how much of your game is patience? Because you look like you let things kind of develop in front of you. And how important is that in this offense?
It's pretty important in our offense. I mean, you have to be patient, let the blockers, you have to let things set up, the blockers get where they need to be and stuff, so it's pretty important.
Conti doesn't like to talk about himself much, but he has the speed to run by defenders and the lower half strength and balance to run through them.
His center of gravity is so low and he's so powerful. I mean, we're talking about this kid, he's a 550-pound squatter. You know, he's power cleaning 315 pounds, and, you know, he's so low to the ground, guys come up to tackle him, and they don't realize how dense he is as a human. Like, we're going through our shed drill the other day, and I go up and try to put a shoulder into him to show a drill, and I was the one that moved backwards. I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
I feel like I'm fast at times. I can lower my shoulder at times too, and I can put my foot in the ground and make a juke too. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, we've got a bunch of big dudes up there that are making lanes for everybody. I mean, I think all three of our running backs had a field day today. It's all due to the linemen up front.
Every time his running ability is brought up, Rocco Conti credits his offensive line. He's the most talented player on the team who also works as hard as anyone, but he's much more of a we guy than a me guy.
As good as Rocco is on the football field, he's even better person, better human being. He's a fantastic leader within the team, within the school. You know, he's obviously a captain for us, does all the right stuff in as far as academics go, treating his peers with respect. I mean, if you had to mold someone as how you want a leader, he's the one.
High praise, for sure, but it is earned. Conti maintains above a 3.5 grade point average, taking college-level classes, and is as committed to his academics as he is his athletics.
Academics are super, super important. Obviously, I want to go to college to play football, and academics are a huge part. I think I'm either want to go like engineering, some kind, maybe civil or something, or finance route. So I'm not too sure yet. I have to do a little bit more research on the two of those.
So you like the math, though?
I do like the math, yeah.
What is it about math you enjoy?
I don't know, just like problem solving and stuff. You have to have problem solving skills.
Moving into the season this summer, we had a lot of Ivy League schools coming in for him and for Jack Pinchek, and so, you know, just for those type of schools to come in to take a look at you, you have to have strong academics, and, you know, he definitely does. He's focused in the classroom. He does his work outside of school in the classroom, and, you know, it's not just your typical football player that, you know, in quotes or whatever, but he is a student, he's an athlete, he's a great person, all those things.
If you know a student who deserves recognition, we want to hear about them, and you can nominate them completely online. Go to ohiolottery.com. Find the About section. Click on Partners in Education. There you will see links to nomination forms. Nominate that student as an academic all-star, and they could end up being featured as our next shining star. Rocco Conti and the rest of Ohio high school football players getting ready for the first round of the playoffs. In just a couple of hours, we will continue to bring you some of the role model students from all across Ohio. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here Monday, special time, noon to 1, as we get ready for Monday Night Football on Halloween night, the Browns hosting the Bengals. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you back here Monday at noon on Sports for CLE. See you Monday.